What is the difference between a stub nib and a double broad nib, or a BB nib? BB is double broad. That's a great question. This is a nice kind of segue. Didn't really plan it that way, but it's a nice kind of segue coming over from the previous question. Talking about how not everything is the same from one brand to another. Double broad nibs are pretty rare. I think I had a question last week in episode 81 about, who offers a double broad. I don't have anything in a double broad at gouletpens.com. Nothing. There's a couple of brands where you can special order it, but that special order process is just way too complicated and convoluted and unreliable for me to be able to order it, so we don't do it. Kaweco's got one, Pelican, Omos. Those are the only ones that I can think of, the brands that I carry, that have a double broad at all on any of their pen offerings. Not true. Pilot also has one, but it is not brought into the US either. I can't even special order it, but I've used it. I've used a Pilot Custom 912 with a double broad, and it was pretty nice actually. Anyway, but the concept of a double broad is essentially, it's just a bigger broad nib. It's just more tipping material. It's a fatter wad of tipping material that's on the end of that pen, so it's just a broader line. No special line variation or anything like that. That's in essence what a double broad is. A stub nib, if you've got a ball like this, like you would have on a double broad, the stub nib is going to be ground more like that, a little flatter. So it's going to be more like that on the tip, as opposed to, okay, this is a better hand analogy. So this is a double broad, well then stub nib is going to be more like that, kind of flatter. So basically, as you're writing with a stub, when you do the cross stroke, you're going to get a thin line, because it's only going to be the width of kind of the height of this nib. And then as you do the downstroke, you're going to get this swath of this whole nib here. So you're going to get more of a calligraphy look to it. Still going to be very wet, very broad, just like the double broad would be, except the double broad, you're just getting, it's more like a Sharpie, right? Like it's just very broad and it's just one fat line. The stub is going to be line variation depending on the cross stroke versus the downstroke. That's really the difference. Now, what is a little confusing is some companies have a double broad nib that really is kind of ground more like a stub. Like for example, I have a Montblanc 149 with a double broad nib that they could really call a stub because it's got some pretty distinct line variation. However, it's called a double broad. So go figure. Again, it's going to be just kind of based on the individual pen. There's no international nib authority that's telling what the specific parameters are. It's kind of just a general understanding, and each company kind of does their own thing a little bit. So you're going to have to kind of take and choose based on each pen brand and what they do. But that's just the general concept. Cool? Awesome.